Hello, bonjour à tous. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our live session today. So, on the topic for today, I am going to be talking about how to leverage the French language to boost your Canadian permanent residency chances. And the reason for this live session is that I have been inundated with a lot of calls, a lot of emails. People keep asking me what role French plays in helping them to boost their Canadian permanent residency. And that is going to drive the conversation for today. So, I would like to first start by introducing myself or reintroducing myself for the sake of those who are just coming across my profile today. My name is Madame Ugo, and I am the convener or the lead tutor for Nous Parlons Français, where we simplify the act of learning the French language. My core purpose is to demystify French and also tell the wider audience that it is possible to learn French even as an adult, using myself as an example, as I had learned French as an adult in my 40s. And today I have been confidently tutoring French for the past 5 years, going to 6 years. So I am here to tell you that if you have the ambition of learning French, but you have some pre existing biases against the language, I want to tell you that French learning is not as difficult as you think it is, especially when you have a good English background. And the reason is that French and English share close proximity. Keeping that aside, let's go to the core of the matter today. What is the TEF and what is the TCF? So, TEF is simply TEF d'évaluation de français, while TCF is Test de connaissance de français. These two exams are the official exam that you need to show that you have their competency levels in order for you to demonstrate to the Canadian government that you have mastery of the language. So when it comes to application for your Canadian immigration, especially for permanent residency, you need to show that you have adequate French speaking knowledge and also English speaking knowledge. Now, when it comes to the English side of things, we have the IELTS exam. We also have the CELPIP and the other competency exams in English. So the way it goes, the Canadian government uses a lot of factors in order to determine your eligibility before you can be given an invitation to apply for your permanent residency. There are different factors that are being considered. One of those factors could be your age. And mind you, that the younger you are, the better your chances, especially when you have a certain level of educational qualification. I will give an example. Now, if you are somewhere around 25 years or between 24 and 25 years, and you already have a master's degree, and you already have up to 3 years work experience, whether it is international work experience or your work experience was derived from Canada, you have better chances than anybody. And what it means is that when you do your English competency test and with your other credentials like your master's degree, your first degree, all you need to do is to go to the IRCC website and key in all of those information. There is what we call the comprehensive ranking score. The comprehensive ranking score, based on all of these factors, is going to now rank you based on the information that you have provided. For someone who is 25, has a master's degree, has up to 3 years work experience, the person obviously is going to have higher points, say about 530 or 540 something. More so when you have done your English competency exam and you max out the points. So for the English competency exam, I will talk with the one I have very vast experience with, the IELTS exam. You need to score a minimum of 8777. And your band 8 score must come from your listening. Then for reading, writing, then you can have band 7 from your reading, from your writing, and from your speaking. You can have band 7, while from listening, you have to make a band 8. That is the minimum standard that will give you higher point. So for someone who is 25, who has a master's degree, who has mastered the points on the IELTS with 540 to 550, you do not have a problem because that is where the average cutoff point is for Canadian immigration on the express entry profile. Here is where French comes in. How many people today are within this bracket? I bet you that we have limited number of people who fall within this category. And this is where French comes in. I was in a situation like this about 6 years ago to 7 years ago when I had the dream of immigrating to Canada. I already had my master's degree. I already had over 10 years work experience. But when I went to the IRCC website and checked my comprehensive ranking score, my score was nowhere near 500. And mind you, at that time, the cutoff point on the express entry was about 450. So with my age in my 40, early 40 then, late 30 to early 40, 6 years ago, and all of the factors that I have listed, my master's degree, my over 10-year work experience, and I was still below the cutoff point at the time, which was around 460. There was nothing else left for me. Even if I had had 9 points across all of the language competencies in my IELTS, my score still wouldn't have been enough to fetch me up to 460. That was where the idea of learning French came into the picture. And the reason being that for IRCC, when you demonstrate that you have an additional language competency, like the French language, you are issued additional points. At that point, I decided that the only option was for me to go learn the French language. Now, this conversation is going to take another interesting turn. I'm sure some of you might be wondering, so how was it possible that you were able to learn French as an adult? And that is where I am going to now mention my background to convince you that it is possible to learn French as an adult. I have a mathematics background. As a matter of fact, my first degree is statistics. My second degree is master's a master's in business administration, which of course is the MBA. Now, given my training, my background in research, in strategy development, problem solving, that's all I have known in the course of my career. And what I always do in life, even in my personal space, whenever I am confronted with a challenge, the next thing that comes to my mind is the most efficient way to solve that problem. And given that I have a research background, a mathematics background, that helps me to better expand my scope in terms of how to find a workable solution. And I applied all of those in learning French. Along the line, I discovered certain tricks, certain methods that I can easily apply. For example, in certain words that we have in English, I discovered that there are some classes of verbs that we have in English that have close relationship with French. I give you a typical example. Most verbs that we have in English that end with ate, I figured out that in French, their own version end with er. This is one of the things that I discovered. I also figured out some nouns that end with ity. I also figured out even how to do my verb conjugations. In fact, it got to the point where I even developed what I call mathematical formula for some of my verb conjugations. So my students who are already used to my teaching style are aware of these tricks. So these are the things that I applied that helped me to be able to learn French in record time. And within 6 months, I was able to master the language. I took extra 2 months, did my TEF practice, and I went and did the exam and I smashed it in one sitting. And this is to show you that when the heart is determined, there is absolutely nothing you want to achieve that you can't achieve. So, after I passed my TEF exam, I added that to my profile, my Express Entry profile. Boom, my CRS point shot up to about 465. Mind you, that at that time, the French category hadn't been introduced. While I was still waiting, the Express Entry points were still climbing up. Meanwhile, there had been information that the French category was being introduced. And thankfully or fortunately, the French category was introduced, and I was one of the first people that got nominated. In fact, I need to abridge my story because the first one even expired. I did another TEF exam, I smashed it again. So, this is to tell you that when you are determined, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that you want to achieve that you cannot achieve. So, back to my story. The French category Express Entry draw was launched, and the cutoff point at the time was lower than what was obtainable on the Express Entry. And I was selected. So, this is to show you that when you have the additional French language skill, it helps you to expand your chances of getting your permanent residency. And what this means is that when age factor is against you, the main skill or factor that can help you is the extra language factor, which comes from French. And the French category, as at today, remains the most competitive, the most attractive pathway that can help you to get your permanent residency if you are determined. I will flip the coin on the other side. Now, I am not saying or knocking down those who are taking the educational route to immigrate to Canada. The fact is that there are quite a lot of people who choose the educational route, both for the sake of having to improve their chances of getting the permanent residency, not just for the education that they are acquiring, they also would like to use that to solidify their chances. I get it. And the reason is that when you have Canadian educational qualification, yes, it gives you extra point. Now, look at it this way. When you come over here to pursue a master's degree, as your program is going on, you are also growing in age. Your age is also advancing. So, if you have come to do a 2 year master's degree program and say you came at the age of 30 or at the age of 35, by the time you are concluding your educational pursuit, you will be 37. And mind you, that each year you add additional age, you lose about 5 points. So as you are graduating, you are losing points based on your age factor. You will find out at the end of your studies that the educational qualification you have gained, when you plot it vis-a-vis the point that you might have gained based on that, may not give you adequate advantage in order for you to get invited to apply for your permanent residency. Now, this is where French comes in. When you add French knowledge skill in addition to your Canadian educational pursuit, that balances things up for you. So, what this means is that even though you might be losing some points while you are pursuing your academics, with the backup of the French language skill, which gives you additional 64 points. You can even get up to 72 points based on how well you do in the exam. For example, if you're able to get all C's or you blast C2s, you will get as much as 72 points. So let me just take it that you get the minimum expected pass point, which is the band 7. That will give you 64 points. So if you are an international student and you decide to also pursue French side by side with your academics, what this does for you is that when you are pursuing your academics and you are also learning the French language, by the time you have graduated and you have also learned French and possibly done your TEF or TCF Canada exam and you come out with pass mark. Whatever point you might have lost based on your age, you will gain it back with French. So what this means is that you will even stand at a more advantage if you're already an international student in Canada. So when you go back to your express entry profile, your Canadian educational qualification is going to give you points. Then your French added skill is going to give you massive 64 points. Then you also add other factors. If you have been working in Canada as well, your Canadian work experience will also give you some points. Your international work experience, if you've got any, will also give you some points. Now, the beauty of French is that if in all ramifications you didn't have the intention of actually pursuing a master's degree, you can actually channel your efforts into learning French and using the French language skill, extra language skill, to boost your Canadian permanent residency chances. And let's be realistic today. The cost of pursuing master's degree in Canada, especially for international students, is quite appreciable. You will agree with me that the average cost of paying tuition, not to talk of living expenses, is way exorbitant. In some instances, you could spend as much as $40,000 to $50,000. But I bet you that with a fraction of that sum, with less than even 10% of that sum, what am I saying? With about 2.5% of that sum, you can actually dedicate your time, your energy to learning French. And believe you me, if you pay such an attention and expend such an amount in your French learning. With that additional French skill added to your Express Entry profile, even if you do not have a master's degree, you have better chances than someone who is already doing a master's degree, who is above 30, thinking that he or she could use the Canadian educational experience and also the Canadian work experience. I am not saying that acquiring Canadian educational qualification is not okay. No, it is okay. But if that is your primary purpose, then you might need to reassess your strategy. So, what I'm saying in earnest, if you want to improve your chances, learning the French language should be a primary consideration for you. So, the next one I would like to talk about is learning French and how to use it. The key thing here is determination. Once you are determined, rearrange your plans, make provision to dedicate your attention to learning the language and also even knowing it beyond even the Canadian permanent residency that you're seeking. And the reason I say this is that even when it comes to career pursuits here in Canada, when you succeed in coming here, you having a second language ability also improves your hireability. So you could see the immense benefits that French portends for you. And even going back to those who are already here studying, that is even additional layer of more advantages to you. So now you already have your Canadian educational qualification, you're already amassing your Canadian work experience, then you now add French factor on top of this. You will agree with me that those who are already international students, who are already learning French, will be way more ahead. So, what I'm trying to say in earnest is this: whatever it is that you are doing, please consider French. Try to learn French and add it side by side to whatever pursuit that you are doing. And the reason is that when it comes to work, it gives you an advantage. When it comes to your permanent residency, you also have an advantage. So it is an advantage, a gift that keeps giving. And also, even imagine a life as a bilingual person. So, what this means is that even in your everyday life, you can also use it, especially when you go to French speaking places. It helps you to expand even your career horizon beyond the scope of your environment. So, what I want to achieve with this session is to show you the immense benefits that you stand to gain with the knowledge of the French language. And to also tell you that if you have been considering learning French before now and you are biased or you have some prejudices against French, please know today that French is actually not as difficult as you think it is. Now, another part where people complain is where to start from because of the immense dimension of the language. And I will keep it simple. While learning your French, start with the simple things. You could start by one, learning your alphabet, learning your numbers, learning your nouns. And when it comes to your nouns, focus on the things around your environment, the things around your home, the things around your office environment, because the TEF and TCF exam hover around all of these things. So if you are able to have a good grasp of this aspect of French, then it makes it easier for you to handle. And I want to encourage you today, however way you want to go about it, please make learning French a priority. Um, Today, I wanted to bring on board, but what I would do is the next live session I'm going to be having, I will try to bring on board some of our past students who have already been on this journey and have succeeded. And the testimonials will show you that people are actually taking this part and it's really paying off. We had a most recent result for those of you who are following us on our Instagram of our student, one of our students that recently got her invitation to apply. It wasn't even up to a week. She updated her Express entry profile and she gets her invitation to apply for her Canadian permanent residency. Mind you that this is someone who was determined, and within a total of 6 months, she was able to acquire the needed French skills. She did her TEF and she passed and passed really well. I believe that if one person can do it, if Madame Ugo can do it, anybody can do it. And trust me, there is no age limitation on French. Being that when you even check the latest draw on the French category, the cutoff point was around 432. So, what this means is that even if you're 45, even if you are 50, and you have a master's degree, when you add French to your other factors, with a master's degree above 45 years, your point, your CRS point, your comprehensive ranking score is around 440, because at that age, you will not have any point for age factor. And guess what? On the last draw that was done on the 6th of October, the French category draw was 432. So, meaning that if you are above 45 with the extra French language skill, you still have a chance of being given an invitation to apply. So, what this means is that French stands to be one of the most attractive pathways that you can use today, given that the Canadian government is giving a lot of attention and consideration for the French language as they are trying to boost the Francophone community and also promote French language speaking across Canada. As if they don't do this, the number of people who speak the language might be decreasing. And as a matter of fact, in Canada, French is the second official language spoken here. So I encourage you today, if you are still considering whether you should learn French or not, now is the time, because you never can tell. The policy might change tomorrow, and the government feels that they've got enough number of people who already have French speaking skills and they could chop it off. So, if you are still trying to make up your mind, this is the time for you to take that decision, take it one step at a time, and begin to learn the French language. You can start from anywhere. You can start from free resources you can find around. But the best will be to be intentional about your learning. Get a good tutor. Start learning French today. I bet you that if you give yourself a chance, you will be glad that you did. Thank you and see you some other time. Bye for now.